Alright, guys, I have some interesting numbers for you. Um, I have been so fascinated by this election um, on both sides with Trump and Hillary. And I'm not a huge believer in the polls. I think Trump is going to win by a bigger margin than the polls are predicting right now. Um, but to be fair to the polls, um, I wanted to kind of do a comparison of what the vote outcome could possibly be in some of these battleground states and nationwide for the popular vote. So I kind of did something interesting. So I took the numbers from 2012 that Obama and Romney got, um, the actual vote total numbers. What I did is that I found the latest poll in each of these battleground states. And basically, what I did is I took the final vote total from those states, and then I just kind of substituted in um, the percentages that the current poll it was giving each of the candidates for the different races in the state, so black, Latino, white, um, just to kind of get an idea what the state is going to do if these numbers stayed exactly the same. Now, granted, they aren't going to stay the same. I think turnout's going to be higher this year, um, and we really don't know who that's going to benefit. Some people say it's going to benefit Clinton because she has a better ground game. Some people say it's going to benefit Trump because he's got this massive movement and just a ton of momentum and support, um, especially among whites. So this is all theoretical. This is by no means how these states are going to go. This is just basically using statistics from the 2012 election and mixing them in with current polls for this election to kind of see where the vote is going to come from and ultimately who's going to win each of these states. I also brought up the 270 to win map here to kind of illustrate where each of these candidates are going to win, and so forth. So I'm just going to kind of fill these in. So I'm going to start by filling in the states that I think are a lock, regardless. And we'll give one vote. Okay, so the states I am going to focus on right now are Nevada, Colorado, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Florida, and New Hampshire. Now, people say that Colorado, Michigan, and Pennsylvania are all locked up. I am actually going to disagree for a couple reasons. The poll for Hillary Clinton during the primary in Michigan, she was up 21.5 points over Sanders, and he ended up beating her by 1.5 points roughly. So that's a state that is volatile. That's a state that the polls could be totally wrong in because they've been wrong in before. That's a state where I don't think Hillary Clinton is necessarily liked. I think Trump has a big base of support among blue collar workers, especially whites. Um, and so that's why I kind of put that one in play and kind of wanted to do some numbers on it. So let's start with New Hampshire all the way up top here. So as we can see, in the there is no poll out of New Hampshire that actually goes by race, which was a little bit irritating. So what I did is I just took the national, I just took the average in this demographic from the national poll, the IBD poll, which they claim is the most accurate. So in that poll, in this last poll, Trump was getting 48% of support among whites, 45% for Clinton, 33% for Trump among Latinos, 58% for Clinton, and among blacks, which there isn't many in New Hampshire, 10% for Trump, 83% for Clinton. Now, this does not factor in the third-party candidates, so you're obviously probably wondering, well, that doesn't add up to 100%. I didn't put the third-party candidates in there for a reason. This is what the estimated vote total would be, barring those people out. So, so in this case, Trump would get just under 1,400 votes among blacks. She would get almost 14,000 among Latinos. He would get close to 7,000. She would get about 11,000. Whites is where Trump has his biggest advantage with her, And the great thing about doing it by race is that it already puts in men and women, so you really don't have to figure that out, which is why I did it this way. So among whites, he's getting about 312,000. She's getting about 293,000 roughly. Doing it this way, according to these percentages, Trump would come out the victor, 329,569 to 317,842. Now, this is all theoretical, remember. I am using 2012 final total numbers for the election and mixing them in with current polls for each of these states for this election. But according to this, it would be a Trump victory. But if you look at it, it's really only a victory of about 2,500 votes, which means I say Trump victory, but with caution. This is basically a dead heat in the state, and the polls reflect that. As of today, the polls in New Hampshire show Clinton up 0.8 points, which is a statistical tie. So this state is going to be very close. If it's any good news for Trump, he's doing better among whites than she is, and that is a good majority of the population up in New Hampshire. So I'm going to give the slight edge to Trump in the state right now. But I'm going to say it's close enough to where I can't really give a thing. So in this case, I'll give it to Trump just for the sake of it, because he is leading, and his support among whites is promising. Next, let's go to Pennsylvania. So Pennsylvania, this is the state that Trump people say he can win. I just don't see it happening this cycle again. I think he's going to fall short again. I'm going to kind of explain why. So I used the latest Monmouth poll. They had Trump at about 9% support among blacks, 83% for Clinton, 33% for Latinos, 53% for her among Latinos, and then whites, Trump is beating her 50% to 43%. Here's the problem. There's a bigger, unlike New Hampshire, there's a much bigger Latino and black population, and his margin among whites is a lot lower than in some of these other states like Florida, North Carolina, and so forth. So kind of just diving into it, among blacks, he's garnering about 56,000 votes. She's getting about 518,000 votes. Among Latinos, he would get about 150,000. She gets about 240,000. Among whites, he's beating her about 268,000 to her 2,268,000 to her 1,950,000. And when you tally up this, the margin is pretty big in her favor. 2,474,000 votes to her 2,708,000 votes, roughly. So I'm going to call this for Clinton. The polls kind of reflect that. I think it's going to be close, but I think she's going to win by at least 100,000 votes in Pennsylvania. This data backs it up. So I'm going to call Pennsylvania for Clinton, which is a big blow to the Trump people, because Pennsylvania, it's not a must-win state, but it really kind of narrows the path that Trump potentially has to the White House. But good news, because it gets a little bit better from here on out. So I'm actually going to go down to Florida right now, just because this is in order. Florida, I'm going to say it right now, Trump is going to win Florida straight out. I know these polls show her up, but according to the data that I'm getting, the latest Q poll had her up 1 point. 1 point. The problem with that is the statistics that lie in the poll, and this is where I get kind of iffy about where these polls actually are and how their methodology works, because in this Q poll, Trump was garnering 58% of whites to Clinton's 33%. That margin's huge. If he gets that type of margin among whites in the state, and they already said whites are up about 7.5%, which I didn't factor in this race whatsoever, that gives him 3,410,000, almost 411,000 votes to her 1,940,000. That gives him a 1.5 million vote lead to boot among whites. I'm sorry, if he gets that type of a margin, he's unstoppable. He's going to win the state. There's absolutely no way. that he is going to lose that state. Among Latinos, I actually have these mixed around. So it's supposed to be Trump is getting about 31% among Latinos, and he's getting about 59%. She's getting about 59%, and then 85 and 9. So among blacks, she's crushing him as expected. Here's the thing that's not factored into this Florida poll. Early voting suggests that black turnout is way down, about 15% down. White turnout is up about 7.5%, and Latino turnout is up about 7.5%. The black vote being down 15% is horrible news for Hillary Clinton. That's not even factored into this poll. If you took 15%, if you took 15% of the blacks and just basically took them out of the election, it just benefits him because that's where he's losing the biggest. So I'm not even going to go over the numbers with this one. The final vote total I came out with was 3,960,000 for Trump to 3,689,000. So approximately a 280,000 vote lead for Trump. It's kind of like Pennsylvania. I don't think Pennsylvania is going to shift in his favor. I think Florida is going to be won by Trump this election cycle, which is good news for him. So I'm going to put Florida in Trump's column. So if you look right now, pretty even race, 243 to 249, and we moved to North Carolina. Here's the deal: North Carolina, I think, is the most critical state this election. I think it is going to be one of the closest battlegrounds in this election, and it is critical to both sides. If they want to try to either stop the other or become victorious. So here's the deal. Same in North Carolina, they were saying that black turnout is down about 15%, white turnout's up about 10%, and Latino turnout is about the same. I didn't factor that into this, but let me just kind of go over the numbers with you. So among blacks, he's garnering 19%. This is according to the Remington poll, which is the best poll I could get. There's no polls that had demographics by race other than Remington. So it's not the best poll, but I'm going to roll with it. So 19% among blacks for Trump, which gives him about 170,000 votes among blacks, and her 79%, which is about 702,000, 703,000. Among Latinos, he's getting 22%, she's getting 59%. It's about 68,500 for Trump, 183,700 for Clinton. Among whites, he's beating her pretty soundly, about 21 points, 57% to 36%. So that gives him a 1.825 million votes to her 1.153 million votes. In the end, it totaled out to 2,063,000 votes approximately for Trump and 2,039,000 votes for Clinton. This is another really close one. The only closer race was in up in New Hampshire. So yeah, this is going to be a really close one, guys. Romney did not win it by a huge margin. This is a state that the polls are going to close, and you are not going to know until 95 or 97% of the vote is in. But I'm gonna give it to Trump for a couple of reasons. One, I did not factor in that they're saying the African American turnout is down 15% and white turnout is up about 10%. If you were to average that in, it would probably give Trump a lead more comparable to what Romney had in 2012. So I'm going to give North Carolina to Trump. Going down, out of all the states that they said Trump could turn blue, I actually think Michigan is probably the most likely out of all of them. I love the state of Michigan this election cycle because it's been very unpredictable. Trump crushed his competition in the primary, and Hillary lost even though she had a huge lead in the polls. It's a state that has had a huge change in demographics over the last couple of years. There's a ton of blue-collar workers. There's a lot of whites. There's a lot of African Americans. Not as big of a Latino presence, but it's still there. And I think Trump's trade message is actually keeping him competitive in that state, because I think a lot of people are resonating with that message. But let's kind of go into it. So I use the Marist poll. Among blacks, he's getting about 14% to Clinton's 83%. Among Latinos, he's getting about 38% to Clinton's 55%. And among whites, he's garnering about 48% to 42%. So that gives him 85,000 approximately among blacks, her about 505,000. Among Latinos, about 89,000, for with her about 129,000. Then among whites, he's garnering about 1.918 million to her 1.534 million. So the final vote total in this, if this was correct, was 2,092,000, almost 93,000 for Trump to 2,168,000 for Clinton. That's only about a 75,000 vote difference between these two in a traditionally hardcore blue state. 75,000 votes is not that much. I mean, I'm calling it for Clinton still, but this is going to be another state that's going to go down to the wire, I believe. I think Clinton's going to be in for a little bit of a surprise in that state. I think there's going to be a lot of Trump supporters up there. Okay, moving on. So, no, we skipped over Nevada. I didn't even realize that. So no, we'll go to Nevada now. Nevada is an interesting state because, as you notice, I did not include Asians or other in any of these other states, and the reason being is that there is such a minute population, they would not even be able to affect probably a 3,000 to 4,000 vote difference. But in Nevada has a huge presence among Asians and other cultures, so I had to add them in here just for the pure show of it. But let's just kind of go into it. I used the Emerson poll. Among blacks, Trump is getting 19%, Clinton 73%. Among Latinos, Trump is getting 34% to 52%. Among Asians, and other cultures, he's getting about 36%. She's getting about 53%. And among whites, he's getting about 54% to her 41%. This is, I mean, I couldn't have done this if I tried. I actually came out with a dead tie. The reason being is that she's leading him in the minorities big time, and he's leading her in the white vote big time. It came out to the exact same vote total for each candidate. I don't think I could have done that if I tried. This is all purely fact-based. This is taking the 2012 election numbers and mixing them in with current poll numbers for Trump and Clinton. I'm going to say a tie favors Trump. If it's a really close race, I'm going to say, and it's the same in Nevada too, they're saying that she's ahead in the early vote, but they're actually saying that African American turnout is down and white turnout is up. Anything white turnout, I would say, would favor Trump, and anything black, an African American decrease in turnout would favor Trump as well. So I'm going to reluctantly give him this state. I think North Carolina and Nevada are going to be two of the closest states in this election. Maybe New Hampshire, but I think those two are going to be close. I'm going to give that to Trump. So you can see right now he's at 270. He wins those states, he's at 270, and I think there's a good chance of him doing it. I definitely think the closest one will probably be Nevada. I think North Carolina will stay in Trump's column. And that brings us back to Colorado. Now, here's the deal with Colorado. It's the same thing in Colorado too. Black turnout is down, white turnout is up. There's a big Latino population. And, I didn't even write in the poll. The poll was the Q poll. So among blacks, Trump is only garnering about 8%, Clinton 83%. Latinos, he's getting about 38% to her 50%, and among whites, he's getting about 47% to 44%. I'm just going to go through this quick to save time on this video, but it ended up with Trump 1.117 million to Clinton's 1,066,000. So a narrow Trump victory, according to this. The polls suggest this too. I actually think Trump has huge momentum right now in Colorado. I think he's going to get a huge vote out of counties like Jefferson County, which is kind of a suburb of Denver. I think he's going to get a huge turnout in rural areas that have not traditionally seen a large turnout. So I am actually going to give this state to Trump. And then as you can see, if this is the scenario that plays out, which according to my data, there's a good chance of it doing it, Trump would win the presidency 279 to Clinton's 259 close race. And that's barring he doesn't lose like a state like Arizona, which is my home state, or Iowa, or Ohio. But as of right now, the last poll that came out in AZ is five. He was up 5 points. He's not going to lose the state. I know for a fact. I've lived here all my life. There's a big presence for Trump here. He's going to win Arizona. Iowa looks fantastic among early voting for him, and Ohio. I heard the other day Clinton is actually pulling out of Ohio because she pretty much has given up on the state. Notice I didn't include Virginia on this list, or Wisconsin, or Minnesota. Reason being is that Virginia has been the state where she has not seen a lot of movement to her downfall and to Trump's benefit, so I think Virginia is going to stay with her. It'll be close in Virginia, but I think she's going to pull it out, so I didn't even include it. So I actually did the same thing for the popular vote, too. I used the IBD poll, the latest one, that actually showed Clinton up 1, surprisingly. Used all the demographics. So according to that, Trump was getting 7% of the black vote, 33% of the Latino, 53% of the white, and 40% roughly of the other. Now the other, I just actually put in this number. I didn't use it from the poll. The reason being they didn't have a category for other. But I kind of figured that any other minorities would favor Clinton, by at least 20 points. So I put 40% for Trump, 60% for Clinton. So if totaling it out, Trump actually beat her in the total vote category too, 60,882,879 to 60,748,195, which is roughly about 133,000, almost 134,000 votes in Trump's favor. That is a razor thin margin, razor thin. If we remember back to the year 2000, Al Gore beat George W. Bush by a much bigger margin than this, and he lost the presidency. So here's the deal. My data favors Trump actually in the Electoral College from what I found, and I'm being totally unbiased. All I am doing is taking the polls from nowadays and comparing them to the data that was that we got from the 2012 election. So this is not, I'm not trying to favor this in Trump in any way. I'm taking the latest polls, good or bad, for Trump, and I am putting this in there. But as of right now, I find that Trump will be the winner of this election. It is going to be close still, but I do believe he will be the victor in the end. Here's what I want you to do. If you agree with this, or if you think this could potentially be the outcome, I think it's going to be close to the outcome. I'm going to be very interested to see if I'm potentially right in the margins. I don't think this vote, I think it's going to be a greater vote total in this, but I just want to see if I was close in predicting the margins. Is he going to be 200,000 ahead? Is she going to be 250,000 ahead? That kind of thing. So I think this will be the final vote total. I think Trump is going to be the next president. I think momentum's on his side. I think what's come out with the FBI the last week has completely and utterly damaged her irreparably. She obviously has nothing left in the tank to throw at Trump, and literally she's walking on eggshells. Any day there could be another huge revelation to come out against her, either with the FBI or WikiLeaks. So I'm going to put the momentum factor on Trump's side. I think he's going to finally win. I think there's going to be low turnout among African Americans, and I think there's going to be increased turnout in whites, which is only going to benefit him. So I'm going to call it right now. I am going to say Tuesday, either Tuesday night or Wednesday morning, Trump will be declared the president of the United States. So let me know if you agree, and thank you for watching this video.